that's going on at the school. There's some proposed calendar changes up there at the school too. And hopefully we'll spin in there and how that relates to economic development within our communities. You got 10 minutes.
After Tuesday night, I'll go with that. Well, thank you very much. Some of you were there Tuesday night. This is going to look a lot the same, maybe a little speed version of it, as I have some slides that kind of bounce back and forth between this and using the internet to show some finances of the district. I'm not going to hit those today. I'll just try to explain those, and then I will present that to our corporation at another time, because I know that's something we've asked for. Yeah, to go with how do we make a growing community, hopefully this proposal is something innovative. It makes people think about sending their kids to school and not open and rolling out. But just a couple, I don't even think I have to state this for here, so the smaller group, but for a bigger group, just let me finish my I'll try to go quick. Let me finish my presentation and then I'll answer your questions. I started off my meeting Tuesday night by stating how many people had heard that Central's closing their doors, and the majority raised their hands within the last couple of years. And that can't be further from the truth. We have a couple indicators for our financial health as a school district. One of them being is solvency ratio, and that's a picture of time of the financial health of the school district, and is calculated by dividing the unreserved, undesignated general fund balance by the actual total receipts of the school district for a fiscal year. The IASB describes watching our solvency ratio trend as one element as a quick indication of a school's financial health. IASB recommends a targeted percentage of 5 to 10%. We're close to 20% as a district. One of the things that I would have showed on the map is all the districts around us. If this is an indicator of financial health, we're the healthiest district in this part of Iowa. I don't believe anybody was with us towards solvency ratio. Our unspent authorized budget is another indicator. IASB recommends 10% or higher as an indicator of health. You can see where our school board, and a lot of credit needs to be handed off to them, went through some pretty rough times, and some of our teachers, you've lived through this. Wasn't too long ago. This stuff can change pretty fast. But where we are today, at the end of fiscal year 2013, we're above 17%. So that's very strong. We have an estimated over for this fiscal year. We should end over $1 million of unspent balance this fiscal year. But I love my job, Santa Claus. Employee pay. We pay our employees at Central very well. And that again, I went back to that kind of map of Iowa to show. And I think that that's important, because obviously if you pay your employees well, one, you can recruit the best employees, and two, you retain your employees. And I think you've seen that at Central over time. And coming from a district that probably was average pay to maybe below average pay, even you would think that doesn't make any sense. Yes, it does. We lost a lot of good candidates who, yes, they wanted the job, call us back the next day. No, I got another opportunity here. So that means a lot, and we want to keep that strong. So I think really quickly here, I wanted to start off with a huge positive for our district. We are not closing our doors, and for once we can change our conversation from finances to academics. And that's what we're really here for as a school district. So, leading into that, the challenges when you start looking at academics is the one-size-fits-all model of education no longer works. We have changing demographics in our nation, and this shows what the federal government has spent on welfare by decade. And that's alarming. I also would have showed a slide, just the state of Iowa. And the state of Iowa, let's say you start off with 0% free and reduced in your schools, the whole state would be white. And then as the percentage goes up, it gets a darker blue. It was shocking to me about 10, 15 years ago, we were almost an all-white state. Now we're almost an all-dark blue state. So the population of the kids that we are teaching is changing. And we need to adapt with those changes. Enrollment-wise, you can see how the floods had an effect on Central's enrollment. We're still on the downward trend. We lost 5 students over last year, and that's something we're going to continue to work on. We have about 63 students open and rolled out. We need to find out why that is. And we need those students back. We have a whole different conversation with 63 more students in our building. And that's before any calendar change. Another challenge is, how are we doing academically? And we heard the complaints Tuesday night, well, we don't try on the MAP test, we don't try on the Iowa assessment test. Well, I don't believe that, first off. Yeah, there's going to be some kids that don't try, the majority of them do. Ask your teachers. The other thing is, if they don't try, this is what we're held accountable for. So whether they try or not, this is what the state and federal government are looking at from us as a school district. And you can see we have really 2 populations in we have 2 populations in the state of Iowa, or not in the state of Iowa, in the Central, really to look at besides boys and girls. We have our free and reduced, and we have our non-free and reduced. We don't have a huge Hispanic population, a huge African American population, a subcategory group. So that's why I broke those 2 out. The only really other subcategory group we do have is boys and girls. And you can see in our 11th grade, we're at about 80% in reading for our non-free and reduced, and actually closing the gap over a 6-year trend line with our free and reduced kids, but they are still lower. But this is the data you would like to see, the gap closing. 11th grade math, we've gone from about 85 down to 80, but again, our free and reduced is up 65 to 70 and closing the gap. 8th grade, a little bit of more alarming data where we're seeing both subgroups decline, plus the gap is widening. And then 4th grade, again, a decline in our reading scores, and the gap is widening, exactly what we would want to see with our MAP scores. And the only building that is not designated as a sign of school is the elementary in math, and that is why. You take that, we're about 90% altogether. And remember, we'll touch on sign in a minute, I guess. Summer regression. What I did is take a look at spring of 11-12 into fall of 12-13. Yes, this is just 1 year. Go talk to a teacher if you don't believe this data, because it's not just 1 year. And go talk to any school district, because it's happening everywhere. Every single class fell, and they didn't fall by just a little bit. We're looking at 20 to 40% drops in reading. Same thing with math. A little less on the percentage with 15 to 30% drops in math. Another indicator of how we're doing as a school is our behavior. And take a look there. This is no surprise. When I've done this when I was at Sacred Heart, the Catholic school, and I did this at Midland. Same exact data. Looks exactly the same. The longer kids are in school, the longer teachers are in school, the more behavior problems we have. Attendance echoed our behavior data. Again, we've been in school for a longer period of time without a break, kids start skipping school. You've heard me talk a little bit about SINA. SINA is schools in need of assistance. And you're going to hear a lot more about this this upcoming year. As the AEA just shared with us this week that I think 15 more schools around us are on it. SINA is back to No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind requires that by the year 2014, 100% of our students will be proficient in reading and math. Okay. The elementary school is in their second year of SINA. Middle school and high school, you often hear them say, well, this doesn't pertain to us. Actually, yes, it does. They're in their first year in reading and they're in their first year in math. And what will happen next year if they do not improve, We go on the watch list for a district in need of assistance. And then the Department of Ed comes in and starts telling us what we need to do. So with our work in the elementary, we needed to figure out what's the root cause. Why aren't we getting to those high levels of proficiency? And we came up with the Iowa Core Reading Standards have not been a priority for teachers during professional development. And that has changed this year, and if you talk to our teachers, I'm sure they can echo that. If we don't improve this year, we go into Sign of 3 next year. And that is the corrective action phase. Under the corrective action phase, those are a list of the options that we have to choose from. And it's still our choice, but we can replace school staff that are relevant to the failure of AYP. AYP is adequate yearly progress. We can institute a fully new curriculum. We can decrease the management at school. I have highlighted and bolded a couple that I am interested in pursuing, and that's why we're having this conversation, is extend the school day or school year, restructure the organization of the school. Or we can also appoint an outside expert to advise the school. So these are things that are going to be coming, whether people want change or not. We are financially strong enough to ask the question, what kind of school district do we want to be? And that aligns with the mission of this corporation. What kind of community do we want to be? We want to sit here and do the same old thing and die, if you will? Or do we want to be innovative and try to get some new ideas and go in a new direction? And lastly, is the data just shared good enough for you? As leader of a school district, is not for me. If you look back at that data, most of our kids are, just like most any other school district in the state of Iowa, right around 75%. That means 1 out of every 4 of our kids are failing. And that just isn't good enough for me. So, to go with the data, a piece of that is our calendar. Is a traditional school calendar really the best structure for high performance? We put together, in this conversation, I've heard from different pockets, oh, they're just doing this, and this is just, his crazy idea. No, it's not just my crazy idea. It started maybe with my crazy idea, but it started way back in fall, right when school began. We had a district leadership meeting, and we started exploring different calendar options to best meet our needs. This one quickly surfaced as something people were interested in. I took it from there to the school board. School board showed some interest in pursuing this. From that point, we developed a calendar committee. And you can see the people that who are represented on that committee. Calendar committee, very quickly, early on, looked at the different calendars, and I proposed a traditional calendar. I proposed a true year-round calendar, and I proposed more of a balanced calendar. And the balanced calendar, we felt our community could support and really took flight and really dominated the conversation. A little history lesson. I did do some research in the traditional calendar. It was actually developed shortly after the Civil War. Think about all the things that have changed in education or anywhere, and we're still stuck using the same model of a calendar as that was developed back in the Civil War. Are farmers using the same tools as were developed back in the Civil War? But that is why we're also getting a kickback and change. In 150 years, we're pretty secure with our calendar. Back then, top jobs are farming, industry, and services. Today, 150 years later, our calendar hasn't changed. Our top jobs are now technology, healthcare, and engineering. I found this interesting quote. The traditional calendar is a model that was developed for the agrarian society of the past when students helped on the family farm and were needed at home during the busiest times of the year. Economic needs, not educational needs, dictated the school year. And that is very true for back then. I would argue now, education is what drives our economy. So should we put the economy first or our future first through our students? Some of you have the proposed calendar in front of you. Some of you do. I don't know if I had copies for everybody. It should be, I didn't check it, but it should be on our district website in color as well. So feel free to check that out at some time. I'm not going to go into a lot of details with the calendar right now. We had really 4 goals the committee concentrated on. The only thing I asked of the committee, and I think I state that on the back side of the calendar, is the overarching goal of what is best for our students. Put all your personal feelings aside and always come back to the question of what is best for our students. And that was very hard to do. If you would have sat through those committee meetings, it was often we were correcting ourselves. And we always had to go back to that question, what is best for students? Our goals were to decrease the summer breaks without taking away summer. Obviously, we wanted to address the summer retention, but we don't want to totally eliminate summer. We wanted to make the quarters and semesters equitable. Under our current calendar, we were actually you have 6 less days in first semester than you do second semester under our current calendar, and that was before snow days. We wanted to build in more time for learning. Learning in the traditional calendar, in our traditional school systems, we believe that, in 3rd grade, you're going to start here, everybody, all 25 of you kids, and you're going to start here, and then you're going to all end right here. What? Did we all learn to walk on the same day? Did we all learn to talk on the same day? Man, it makes no sense. So we wanted to build in a little bit more time for kids that need extra needs or for extension activities, open to all kids. Keep students and staff fresh throughout the year. Going back to that behavior and attendance data. What can we do? Can we throw in a break here and there so that way people can stay fresh through the whole school year? Obviously, if you stay fresh, you're in a better mood, and it trickles down. If I go yell at a teacher today, that teacher's in a bad mood, that teacher takes that bad mood into the classroom. And it works all the way down through our students. So what kind of culture and climate do we want at Central? I got a blog out there. I know school board members have been busy. They've received more emails in the past week, I think, than they have the entire school year. I've received a lot of emails. I've had meetings with staff. I've had meetings with my associates. I've had meetings with the student council. I had a meeting with the entire student body, 6th grade on up. I've had individual meetings with our students since then, individual meetings with staff since then. Obviously out in front of you today, had a very nice meeting Tuesday night with a good crowd of our public. I have another one of those scheduled for 7 o'clock Monday night. So we are listening, and nothing has been decided on by your board or myself. We are listening. Even the calendar you have right now in front of you, I can tell you from the message Tuesday night and some of the things we are hearing, we're already considering changes to that. So that will not be the calendar going forward. But it is, I just want you to see the model of what it looks like. So one of the first things I heard was we need to change our instructional practices, not the calendar. And this came out pretty heavily too Tuesday night. Obviously, I started off by saying I agree. And we're working on it. That's something that you just don't do overnight. Right now, we're going back to our root cause of the sign-up, and that is identifying the Iowa core and making sure we're teaching the correct things to kids. Our teachers have worked really hard this year in developing clear learning targets and then taking that Iowa core and making it into kid-friendly statements so students understand what it is that they're supposed to do. The next step is our instructional practices to get it. So this work has been going on, will continue to go on. Is that a reason not to change the calendar? If we have strong instructional practices plus a calendar that we feel strongly meets our academic needs, that's a win-win on both sides. And we feel that that would be good for students. Research. A lot of people are throwing research out there, and this is a fairly new idea. And research is inconclusive, is what people will say. Well, my question is it? Didn't it state the following? This has a positive effect on your free and reduced population. Going back, I didn't show the slide, but like I said, from white to blue, this population is increasing in the state of Iowa, so we can't turn our backs to it. We have to improve. Also, it improves the climate and culture of your building, and the majority of the parents liked it that were under that system. No research, I would further state, none of the research that people threw at me says that it damages or hurts academics. They just said it's inconclusive. It didn't hurt the academics. They didn't show that, oh my gosh, we went to this calendar and all of a sudden our kids dropped. Not one piece of research says that. Students won't show up on the blue days. The blue days on your calendar, which aren't blue because it's black and white, are the, how do we word those? Gentlemen, what was that? It's not extension, it's enrichment days. Enrichment days, students aren't required to show up. Okay, they are an extra day of school. They're above the 180. So it is extra time for our students. But on enrichment days, or regular school days, I would argue students don't show up now without parent support. We have students right now that I've called and we're filing truancy against. So if the parents aren't going to support us, I can't make them show up. I can't make them show up now, and I can't make them show up on a blue day. Waco, CSD down in central Iowa, has implemented similar intervention days in their calendar, and they're in their first year of it. So they're not proposing it, they're actually living it. Right now, on their optional days of school, they have 85% attendance rate in the middle school and high school. To me, that's unbelievable. They have 95% in the elementary. I think that's excellent. Again, going back to why the blue days, learning shouldn't be a time-restricted activity. Learning's ongoing. We heard the complaint about summer jobs, and yeah, switching and tweaking things are going to affect the time off. We've talked about some possible solutions about Central possibly adding a work release program. We talked about possibly having summer hours in June. It's still 180 days of school. So while they may lose a week or two in June, they gain it elsewhere. And a lot of what we're starting to hear back from our students is they're employed year-round. So if they're employed year-round, we'll hope that they can pick up the extra hours during those times as well. But that is something I would like to ask the corporation, with as being business owners, your feelings on. But ultimately, it was told to me by a community leader, our number one responsibility is educating our students. Summer jobs are great for the kids. That's not a career for the kid. We want them to be successful and get into a successful career. And again, go back to growing our economy. Summer camps and college orientations has been brought up, and you know, we have things throughout the school year in our current system that kids go to. Andy, where are you guys taking off to?
Florida.
We're not going to say no. You know, go to those things.
Getting out of school.
I mean, we've never said no to our parents taking their kids. They're your kids. Now, obviously, if you're keeping your kids, away from school 20, 30 days, we have a duty to inform our county attorney, because then that's affecting their education. You're going to a college visit, I feel I've done my job. Great, that's where I want you to go. So, in my opinion, if this is a policy change that we need to have, then it's a policy change that I think the board's willing to investigate. But we need to have those as excused absences. And furthermore, I would hope that the camps and stuff, if we moved in this direction, would also work with us. It takes everybody working together.
That's
Sports and activities, we would remain open during our break hours. Activity bus was discussed. Do we need to start that up again? That used to happen here. We feel that maybe this would give us an opportunity to offer more activities, and students can focus on activities without worrying about school. So even if they don't get a true break because they're in a sport, at least they don't have to worry about school and homework plus their sport, or school and homework plus the play. They can focus on the activity that they're in. Daycare, again, it's still a 180-day calendar. So the daycare days that people are going to need daycare don't change, unless you are a teacher. And we are hearing some of the people that are probably pretty heavily negative against this are teachers in other districts. And yeah, that's unfortunate, but welcome to the 90% other people that represent our district. You guys live that every day. I live that with my wife. I don't have the exact same schedule as my wife. And you have to work around that. Our question was, what is best for students? Daycares are interested in running a weekly rate during these times. They can run a weekly program. You know, maybe it's an art program, or maybe it's some kind of an athletic program. Daycares can get creative. And as we know, right now here in our own community, the Elkader child care really struggles during the summer months. By decreasing the summer months, it can't hurt that daycare, and we need a daycare. I know everybody on this development corporation agrees, and I know everybody on the school board agrees, we need a daycare in this community if we want to be a growing community. So I feel maybe, can't prove it, but maybe that this calendar could help support our community daycare as well. First off, I would see an increase of kids during those weeks off and limiting that summer break so that way their hard time is less.
Oh, excuse me, Nick. Going back to the previous slide about the activities, the only question I have when you're talking about the transportation, with an activities bus, because you may have some students that don't have driver's license and can't make it in for practices if they're perhaps at different times during the day, will the school be providing an activities bus to maybe pick the kids up at maybe like a Grubber location or a Volga location or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's what probably was done in the past. I don't know this for sure, but at least going out to the local communities.
Because I do know some of the younger students, their parents rely upon the bus to take them to school. And, they're after work, they can pick them up at Elkader.
Yeah.
Or after the activity is done.
I think when you look at the calendar though, really the only sport affected again is baseball and softball. And so currently we don't provide an activity bus now when we're not in school when they have practices. So it would be something that I think we would entertain if there was
But also looking at the calendar, when you do have one break, you also have...
Oh yeah, your breaks, you're absolutely right.
Break.
Yeah.
That's what I'm more concerned about.
Yeah, you're right.
So, because you're going to have...
It would affect...
Football playoffs and then state cross country that one weekend, and I know basketball, once that starts, it never ends. I know, I don't know.
Especially in the long years, right? No, you're all right, and that is something we would consider, and if it's, depending on the size of your team, we could run it, possibly even run a Suburban right to someone's house. So, those are things that we would definitely have to work out. We don't want our kids not to go out for activities. We need every one of our kids out for activities. The pool, Kelly Erickson was at the last meeting and it was on the committee, so she obviously has a heavy insight on our pool. We feel that she's the one that kind of came up with what would you think about summer hours? I said, well, I don't mind summer hours, but we have to figure that out. We'll be starting later in August, when actually if you look at the history of weather, it's hotter in August than it is in June, and there's less rain in August than there is in June. So the pool of operations should be open more in August, I would feel, than June. And I certainly hear that a little bit from our students now too. One thing too is if we're going into June, I think it could increase the business of our pool. It's what if the school offered a shuttle bus that went straight from the school and dropped off a load of kids down at the pool. And then parents could pick them up at a later time, like they do now. That could possibly increase the business of the pool. And then obviously if we're going into June, it opens up some things we can do at the school. Would the pool work with us so that way the PE class can offer some classes using the pool? A lot of our kids, again, we don't take this into consideration, but they never get exposed to pool and swimming. So now we'll get them the exposure and teach them a skill. Also, we just spent a lot of money in a whitewater rafting park. How awesome would it be to have for a class, a PE class that gets to go down to the river and do some whitewater rafting? I don't know what my insurance agency would tell me about that, but hey, it's something I'm going to look into because I think that would be a great idea. We put that money into our community, let's have our students of the community using it. So again, it just ends with what is important for us as a school district, what is important for us as a community. Let's be data driven, not off of our own personal interests. What works for me. We're hearing a lot of me. What is best for kids? Not just any kid, all kids. So that was kind of it in a quick nutshell. There's a lot of different ways to contact me. There is some changes coming to my blog. I did a little reflecting last night, and you'll see some things differently there because it's becoming a little bit of a place for people to shoot out misinformation and negativity and attacks, to be honest with you, and I'm not going to allow that anymore. So You'll see that change today, but you're still welcome to comment. It's just gonna have some rules to go with it, if you will. So any questions for me or any ideas? One of the biggest things we heard at our forum was the June. And we are seriously considering now, we are gonna probably work on a survey that's gonna go out to all community members and ask, you know, what are people's preferences? Would you rather start earlier in August, ahead of the state fair, and then end, if we did that, we would end in essence the first or second week of June, which we may end this year anyway, if the way the weather's been. You know, so we did hear from the other side though. They've been upset for years now because we go during the state fair. So this calendar has us going after the state fair. You know, trying to balance also that August. It's hotter in August. Well, we have air conditioning in our building, so we're allowed to do this. We don't have air conditioning down in the kitchen. And last year when we went on the hot days when everybody else was not in school, you know, it was fine in our building. We couldn't really get the kids outside a lot, but it was not fine in our kitchen. We have, you know, and little older staff down there working, and that's some hard work. So, you know, no matter what we do, one of my recommendations to our board will also be adding some air to that kitchen, just for their safety as well.
Nick, usually when you do something like this, when I've been involved with change like this, there's also a financial accounting of it. And even though the days are going to be the same, but the length that the school's going to be open, anyway, it seems like there's going to be more cost involved, running school buses. Have you looked at how much?
Yeah, yes we have. We don't feel the cost involved for the length of the school year is going to be much different because our building remains open in the summer anyway. But there is the transportation side of it. If we keep with our current routes and run full routes, so we're running just like it's a regular school day on the blue days, it would be about $2,000 a day more. Now looking at that, I think it's time that, you know, I sit down with our bus director and take a look. I mean, we load up our buses right now, and anybody who sits out there, most of our buses are about half full. You know, so we need to take a look at our routes and, you know, while we may increase the cost here, there may be a way to save the cost here, and that's what I'm going to be doing going forward. But I think, you know, you'll have a little bit more building expense, but I don't see it as being, you know, detrimental. And, you know, that came up too. The cost, you know, you're looking at $2,000 a day, and you look at the blue days, you're looking at probably, what, about $20,000 more a year? How much did we spend on iPads? I showed you the data. What year was that implemented? We've been close to $250,000, $500,000 on iPads, and there's no discernible differences in our academic achievement. You know, so we have, the cost is any way you want to look at it. It's nice that we can say, hey, we're exploring spending $20,000 so our kids can have more time to learn. That's kind of nice to say that, and we're not closing our doors. So, but that's going to come out, and we're going to share that at the board meeting, and all that will be figured out before we make a final decision.
I was looking at the sick days, and you had a spike in January, February, whatever it was. That's like flu season. I think you'll have a really big spike in June for people that, okay, the grass is green now, the weather's nice, I want to run.
And their parents will give them the day off.
What's that?
Their parents will support them not going to school one day in June. So, I mean, it's not really going to be better for the students if the parents are like, that's a nice day, you can stay home.
And I think the teachers are going to have a really hard time when spring rolls around.
Right,
Yeah,
spring fever.
Spring fever, May comes, these kids want out.
You talk to teachers that are in a calendar like this, and they say it's not the case, but that's something we'll have to look at as data.
They
You know, we
want
need to
out.
take a look at our data review, and if it doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen, we go back to the drawing board, because education's always changing.
I already filled out my kid's open enrollment. If there's changes, he's gone. So I don't know how many other people have done that.
I have one. Who's your kid?
Travis.
Yep, that's the only one. And I've talked to him, and actually, he's the one I've had probably the most conversations with, and I would say he's not gone. He came up, I said, come back to me with some ideas, and he did. And we're exploring some of his ideas, and if we do it, he says, if you do that, I want to stay. So I think he wants to stay. His worry is June.
He was disappointed last night, I can tell you that.
He came home last night and said if this doesn't go this way, I will be done.
He shared that with me, but like I said, this isn't,
Right,
we're already
this
talking
isn't in
about
stone.
changing this, so.
I'm gonna flip it back to the one she mentioned too with Spike. I work at the daycare. January, February, you're gonna have more days. We have them at daycare too. It's flu season. You're gonna have a spike in maybe the discipline areas. That's because they're cooped up, it's so cold.
Right.
They're cooped up in, like this winter especially. It's nice, we can send them outside to run off. Kids need to be learning in many different environments, and it's not always in a building. And when it's this cold, at daycare too, we have to leave them in, so they're gonna get more poopy. And I think it flips around to, like you said, the summer thing. If the kids are stuck in a learning environment in the building all summer too, the ones that have trouble learning in the structured school, I feel are gonna have more problems because they have that, I need to be out in the green, I need to be out in the open air, I need to be out in my own way of learning that's not the state of Iowa's structured learning, if that makes sense. And I would like that to be considered by the school board for the kids that don't learn in the typical school system way. I think they need their summertime to do their activities that aren't what the state of Iowa says you have to learn. And I think there's a lot of kids in this community that are, based on business and stuff. We have a lot of farming, rural businesses in Iowa, and a lot of kids that learn in that way, learn from their families, they learn from watching aunts, they learn from being out digging the dirt, taking things apart, putting things together, that kind of environment. And I think if the school days change to take their summer away, that might affect those learners. And I would like that to be factored in a lot, because statistically we are rural Clayton County, Iowa. And I want those kids that learn in that environment to have that chance to still be.
And again, we're not taking summer away. There's still 7 weeks of summer. You have all of July off. We went a little later in August. With this proposal, we're going a little later in August than what we would usually start. Yes, we take some in June, but by taking some in June, it also does give the school district an opportunity to offer more opportunities. And that's great. Like I said, that's great for the parents that are doing those things, and I'm one of those parents too. But we have some parents that aren't capable of doing those things. And those kids get left out. We need to teach those kids too, because that's a focus area.
I would say I've heard a lot of things, and one way or the other doesn't really make any difference to me. But I've heard a lot of things about if we move to this calendar, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, this policy possibly needs to change, or this policy should change, or what have you. I would think before you move through with the calendar, all of those policies that you're talking about changing, I mean, if you want to build trust, because those policy changes are good regardless of when the calendar is, that you make those policy changes prior to making the calendar change. I mean, instead of saying, here's a promise, we're going to do this, or we should offer this type of education, or we should offer these classes. Let's put something in place that says this is what we're going to do.
If I made a policy change on a person, would be sitting here. We make policy changes all the time at board meetings, nobody would be sitting here. You have to start with the big item, so that way people can see. I mean, that's what we're here for, is trying to get feedback on the big ticket item. We're not changing anything yet. We want to know what you're feeling about that. And then, that's why we haven't changed some of the policies, and I haven't been here long enough to change some of the policies. We're in a policy review right now as the board, and that's ongoing, but you have to put the big ticket item out there so you get people to come and say, hey, this is how I feel about this.
I'm not sure that's what the man was saying. I think he was saying that, yes, you're going to have to make some adjustments for this new program, but he's suggesting that you try to jump the gun a little bit and get some of them in place so people can get the feel of it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. My point was, this is a dead set no.
To guarantee your flexibility.
Yeah.
I think that's the key, is for people to believe that you will do the things you're going to say when the schedule changes. So the kid that wants to run across the country at state can't.
Well, have the opportunity. Absolutely. I understand that.
Which is a comment I heard from a guy.
Okay, we changed the school name from Central Elkader to Central Community because there's so many communities. How's this affecting all the other communities around us? I mean, everybody's got summer library programs, 4-H, Boy Scout, Girl Scouts. What else do we have?
Bible camps.
Bible camps.
Every church in this
Is
community.
everybody
goes to-
gonna try to squeeze their week of activity in 7 weeks now instead of 3 months?
It's not a true 3 months, but
Well-
that's a question.
I mean,
But
that's.
what does that have to do with student learning on our side?
Well,
You
that,
know,
I mean,
so that's where we're at, where, we hope so. We hope to go and sit down at a table with anybody who wants to have a conversation, and how can we make this work for all
I
parties?
mean, Bible school, for example, the church makes money. These day camps they have down in the city park, the city makes money.
No, we don't.
No.
I will speak on that as a city council member.
But,
Your swimming pool, your campground, those summer programs they have, they are extras that, yes, there is a charge involved there, that's very nice. I said, if you look at our budget, it's, we never broke even on those. Those are things that we have in our community to enhance our lives. I will also say another thing, and you know what, Rob has brought this up this last year, we're looking at the pool losing money every year, yes, it is colder in the spring. Perhaps we need to change our calendar. I think we're very interested in working and making changes. We do what's important for our school district because it's important to have a school district. I think that's the one thing everyone needs to get out of here is you have to remember that it's important to have a school district. Because I said, maybe you guys don't get outside of town. I do. I sell for KCD and radio. And I go to the Starbucks school districts, I go to the Edco school districts, I go to the Clayton school districts. And there isn't a month that goes by that I have not heard will be folded. It's just a matter of time. And they're all kind of getting ready to see who the one will merge with, or will just disintegrate and be gone. And you look at McGregor, you look at Valley, you look at Garnet-Billow. Once this decision got made to have high school, there goes that community.
And that's a great point, and I've heard also to go with that, well, why don't you wait for everybody else? Well, the reason we don't want to wait for everybody else is because that's exactly right. We got people here when I got here that were bringing their buses into our towns, picking up our kids without our school board or the administration knowing it. Do you think they don't want us to close?
And I'll make another concept too, looking at the schedule, it's nice that you've got the breaks involved. And I remember going to school, it's like, lunch will never end, and then you'd have that snow day, it was wonderful. Because you were off. Too many snow days, that's no fun for anyone. That's disruption. But when my wife taught for 34 years, 2 in Minnesota and 2 in Iowa, in Central. And she said too, when she first started teaching, parents would never consider taking their kids out of school for a week break. That just was never done. And on the other side too, I said, teachers get personal days. She goes, teachers would never have considered taking their personal days to take a trip. So maybe by giving these breaks throughout the year, you've given them that window of opportunity to do that and save on, subs for, teachers' breaks. I mean, you're always going to have illness. Last year Kathy subbed for the first year in between Edco and Central. She subbed the entire month of December and the entire month of January because of teachers being ill. It's just the reality. You're going to have that and you can't change that. You just have to kind of hope that, maybe that break away from everyone will break that pattern of kids getting sick after kids getting sick and passing around.
You had something back.
I can answer from the extension side that she was talking about from our programming. We've already talked about how we're potentially going to have to shift our summer day camp programming. And we're right now trying to figure out if there would be a time period we could fit ours into breaks of some sort, because it will impact us. But we're with the city. We don't make money off of our programs. We're doing it as an education for the youth. When it comes down to it, by the time we pay salary, supplies, we're not making anything. So it's not a moneymaker. We're again more for the education of youth.
We did it all year round school when I was in Illinois, and I didn't like it at first, but I ended up really liking it. I mean, the kids, they get bored at the end of summer, and they just need to get back into school, get back in a routine, and having the breaks. I mean, that helped. I thought everybody, involved in summertime. You don't have to worry about them having to represent everything that they did last year. I mean, they know. I mean, you don't have to relive that every year like you do, from the summer to the beginning of the school year. I don't know, I'm in favor.
Years ago, when I was working quite as bit with community development, the school was considered one of the best in the state. Now, we're talking quite a few years ago. But that really, it did help get people looking at the town to move here. It made a difference. It appears that we've slipped from that. The school, the hospital, golf course, opera house, culture are the things that employers look at if you want Caterpillar, for instance, to move in here because their managers want to work here. That and a functional, trainable labor base. Now, Iowa is known for its labor base, skilled people. But if we've slipped, we've got to build that back up, and this appears to be a good way to do it. These are not new ideas. It seems like I was reading about these things 30 years ago, and they made sense then. And if you're willing to be flexible, to find ways to let the kid do a study overseas, to let the kid go to some athletic thing. I have a little trouble with people being pulled out of classes for opening a deer seat. That kind of always blew my mind, but yeah, that's going to be the key.
We're working on it in a great point. The Keystone AEA has already said that we'll support any calendar that we put forward, so we will have all the services we currently have now, as well as I've been at the table with NICC. And one of the things we're working on is developing a track for certification purposes, so that our kids don't just leave with a diploma. Maybe in some cases, if they take a couple extra night classes, they can leave with an AA degree when they leave high school and go straight down the road here and get employed right out of the gates.
Walk on through some good salesmanship and some luck. We got an NICC attendance center up there right next to the school. It's working beautifully.
That wasn't luck. That was a lot of damn hard work.
Yes, it was.
And a lot of people
From your end, and
a lot of people in the community supporting the educational and the whole system, because it was a big bond issue that passed up there.
bond issue that hadn't passed for what, 6 or
5,000
8
years.
Ninth time through, they got it through. But it was because they added NICC and they added a community center.
Yeah, like I said, we've been at the table, and I'm excited about that, about a track. So we also have one for our home ec, or not home ec anymore, it's consumer science. I'm back in my school, I got yelled at for that. The school board on top of that is looking at bringing in and renovating our whole entire home ec room for next year.
You see, if you can do these things and keep that school strong, that gives Roger a good tool to use for his economic development.
Nick, what's the payroll at Central, and what's the overall budget? My reason for my question is the economic impact that the school has within this community in the area. Rough shot estimate.
Yeah, you're looking at probably between 3 to 4 million.
Okay. 3 to 4 million
Am I
payroll.
right on that? School board members, what are?
5 million budget.
Is it five?
5 million?
Yeah, payroll would be.
That's a pretty big engine in this community, which gives us cause to be innovative, in my opinion.
Okay, we pay our teachers better than most schools, I'm understanding.
We pay our teachers well, especially
Pay
for
our-
our size of
pay
our
our
school
teachers
district.
well.
Yeah.
Okay, then why are our statistics for our students going down? They're not learning more. I mean, some of those that you showed, their test scores are going down, whether it's summer or not. Their test scores are not going up by your teachers being paid better.
And that you're gonna find anywhere. So you back to, we used to be really good. If you look at us on a scale, like I said, I should pull that chart up. They got a trend line chart that shows the frame reduced, is that line's going down. We're actually above it. So we are meeting the needs better than most school districts in the state of Iowa. It's just not good enough for me. I think we can be well above it. And it goes back to our instructional practices.
Okay.
You take a look at the way we were taught in school, you know, with the teacher manual, and we sit in our seats and we do the worksheets. That's changed, you know, and for some teachers, and they're not bad teachers.
No, I'm
it's
not
just
saying
they haven't had the training on how to do it. And so that's where we're at, is kind of almost starting over, if you will, and saying, okay, we need to look at what is our focus, what is our target at the end of the school year, what do we want each of these kids, they're not going to know it all, but what must they know to move and be successful, to move on to the next grade level? And that's the work that we're doing. So I hope you see a change here in the next couple of years. If not, I'm not doing my job very well. But I do feel, you know, and then you're also looking at, you know, different kids each year. So it's, when you start looking at test scores, it gets really hairy.
It does,
You know, but
I mean,
that is the indicator that we are held accountable for, and that's why I did a 6-year trend line. Because, yeah, you may have a bad class this year, but, you know, do we have more bad classes than good classes? If we have more bad classes than good classes, what are we doing? Because we're not meeting their needs.
because where your trend started was the year I graduated. And I've just seen that they've gone down. And that's
Your class is amazing.
My class was in 2010. We were the last bigger class to go through Central. So,
Yeah, and then when you look at percentages, so that's a good point. So you're looking at a big class over a small class. One kid makes a bigger difference in a small class than they do in a big
but
class.
if they're smaller class sizes, our children should be learning better because they have more to a teacher one-on-one basis.
Yeah, and it wasn't all going down.
No, it
in those
wasn't
charts
all,
either.
but-
So and we're aware of the problem. That's why we're assigned to 2 schools. So the teachers are working very hard. I think we have very dedicated staff. You know, are we all going to agree with our teachers all the time? Absolutely not. You know, we're not perfect. We're human, but they are dedicated to our community.
I got it, I will say just a couple of things. So Ashley, I said, first of all, I think you need to be very fortunate that your parents cared.
No, hang on a
seriously,
second.
your parents cared enough to make sure that you had breakfast in the morning, you had a family life, you had home.
Can I stop you? Can I stop you? My parents were at work by 7 a.m. I got up, I got my brother ready for school. I got my breakfast ready. I drove him to school. I made sure he had his homework.
But you also,
And they-
you had a home. You know, very seriously, I know the teachers aren't here, but I'm sure like Rob and Jolene and Kristen can probably say, and yeah, I'm sure even Nicole working on the hospital foundation, until you taught in the classroom, I don't think you know how needy some kids come to school.
No, I know. I struggled. I was not an A student until my senior year of school.
Well, no, but that's not the point. What I'm saying is, you had a family, home life, and structure.
But then also-
You did have to get yourself ready.
I was
mean,
in
and-
classes that were more higher structured. My math classes, my parents had no idea how to help me with my homework.
Well,
So I had to find my own
I also can
answers.
say that, yes, I understand where you're coming from, because when I learned math and how they now teach it, the methodology is so different. So I will say one other thing, this is one thing that you really need to consider, that I said, you know, as teachers are doing their jobs, as they're preparing their kids, you know, there are some colleges that don't come to recruit from our school anymore. And what part of it is that when you're talking about the school, not necessarily the school need assistance, but it's that free or lunch program, because I said, you know, they don't see, and actually they don't recruit from a lot of the other high schools in the county either, because they don't see what shall I say, the economic impact, or they don't see that income levels are above a certain median. I said, you know, like, I don't know, if a college even comes down to a 8 or more. You know, I mean, they're recruiting from larger metro areas because they see that the average income is so much more. And also, and you know, some schools are so stringent. You know, when we were looking at colleges, you know, for our daughters, the ACT, but you know, Kathy was comparing, as we went to those open college days, Kathy was comparing, okay, they're requiring this for the ACT or the SAT scores. They're requiring these things. I said, you know, if you want some kids to go to the college of their choice, sometimes, you know, business teachers have a lot of work they've got to do. So, anyway, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I got a feedback too on the reading scores. Do you think the schools, or from the school point of view, do you think the teachers get a lot of blame for reading scores that go down when maybe in general it's just the society has handed so much technology versus when we were growing up, it was, when we were growing up, it was less electronic stuff that distracts kids, so therefore we had more books and more things like that that maybe we're reading, so our reading levels are different versus now in general. Kids are distracted with more of those, they're spending less time doing things we used to do basic, and maybe that's what teachers.
Technology will never replace a great teacher, but I would also argue you can't be a great teacher without knowing how to use technology.
No, I guess.
That's where we're at with education. The thing is it goes back to all three of your points. Yeah, when you take a class of kids, each class is different, each kid's different. What you'll see is even the years we go down, when we receive those kids at the beginning of the year and where they end, they go up, okay? So that isn't always a great indicator. You know, that's our complaint back to the federal government, is saying 100%, really? You know, tell me anywhere that there's 100%. But the goal, and bringing some of our actual issues to the surface of No Child Left Behind isn't a bad thing.
Right.
Had it not happened, we would not know that we need to focus on this and this. So where there was good and bad in that piece of legislation, there's good and bad in pretty much everything. You just got to take that and learn from it, and what can we do to improve. And so I think, you know, when you go back to blaming teachers on test scores, don't do it. Look at the growth over time. And
Okay, maybe I wasn't blaming teachers. I think I was trying to say, do you think kids, maybe are the reason kids are having more trouble learning the reading skills are because there's so much stuff out there now that the kids have to entertain them versus 25 years ago, when kids didn't have those distractions, then kids could learn better.
Absolutely not.
That's how I was.
Our kids now leave preschool being able to read. Back when we were in school, we were just starting to read when we left kindergarten.
Okay.
So absolutely not. The reason is that we have higher standards now than we ever have before. We have families with both working parents. The majority of our families don't have two parents. You know, those are the reasons. It just goes back to both of those, the home life and, you know, there's things that we're doing in school. We have to learn how to use the technology to better teach our kids. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. You can't point your finger at just one thing.
Yeah, you have a question?
Oh, go ahead, Rob.
I would just say we're reaching close to the hour here, and we'd probably like to wrap it up. I'm sure we'll take some questions afterwards, but maybe we have a question or two in regards to economic development within our community.
Mine kind of goes with it, both
All right,
though.
let's hear it.
So if the main goal is to better educate our students, in the end, hopefully they come back to Elkader with higher educations and can point our community in the right direction. Is there any data that you have from a school district that's been doing this over a period of time? Do they have higher test scores? Is the acceptance into college greater? The number of students that are getting college degrees, is it larger? Is there any community that's tracking this 10 years out? What's their average income? Are their kids no longer on the free and reduced lunches? Because we want to eventually come out of that dark blue and become white again for our community.
Yeah, some great points. The only one that I really know of is the downtown Des Moines school, and that's only an elementary school. They track their kids and see where they go. Many of their kids go to the kind of the higher schools in the Des Moines community and then off to college. But the argument back that you'll hear people say, you know, they won't say, well, that has nothing to do with their calendar and their school, because they also do project-based learning there. They'll say, well, that's because of the parents. You know, they're wealthier people. They're, you know, so it's tough. Like when you're looking at that kind of thing, you know, we try to track where our kids are going to college, and we'll monitor that data. You know, how many of our kids go to college. You know, monitor how many come back. You know, I don't know, but if you do look, like even our teaching staff, for example, a lot of those people went to school in our schools, and they did come home. And I think that's a pride. You know, I haven't been in Elkader very long, so I have been moving around quite a bit. My wife is, you know, I'm going to be here for a while, according to my wife, because she's done moving our kids. But through that, you get to see other experiences. And I've shared this with many of you. And I'm a small town person. I grew up in a small town. Elkader has a lot to be proud of. Central has a lot to be proud of. This little community here offers things. I mean, I've been in small communities everywhere, and my kids don't have to drive to some big town that I don't know where they're at night to go on a date. They can go to a movie right here in town. They can go down to the pool. We have good restaurants in town. So there are things here for our kids to do without having to drive. I mean, when I was in Midland, they would have had to go on to Macokota to Davenport to Cedar Rapids. That's an hour drive on the road as a parent with a 16-year-old. That's scary. So we have a lot of positives. We just have to continue to grow those positives. And we need to track that. Absolutely, we need to track that.
So with that, all of these students are open enrolled to other communities. So their parents are going there, they're stopping at their gas stations, they're grabbing food at their restaurants in their towns, they're doing business in those towns. So have you come up with ideas how to market this calendar to those communities, or to the people that are open enrolled in other communities, to bring them back into Elkader? Because not only does that help the financial strength of our school district, but it helps the financial stability and strength of our community.
Calendar or no calendar, anything positive we do, we have got to start talking about it. Education in general, what do we hear in the news all the time? Oh, the bad stuff, the bad stuff. If we get like a track going with NICC, we're offering a certification program, we need to market that because none of the other schools are doing that. The calendar is a thing that I think we can market, and hopefully we'll look at, there's going to be some people that are possibly going to open and roll out, but there's going to be the opposite too. It's like, wow, Central's not closing their doors, they're being innovative. It's like, I want my kid to go to an innovative school, and they may open and roll in. I don't know, I don't have the data on that, and this is what we have to monitor over time.
How many students open and roll in to Central?
Right around 60. So it's almost a wash, where I think there are maybe 2 or 3 kids more out than coming in.
I guess I graduated from Garnavella and my older kids graduated from Clayton Ridge. And once they started in Garnavella, they finished at Clayton Ridge.
I'm in a hurry.
So I have younger kids in Elkader. And last year, I had problems with my daughter with learning, and they were like, the teacher was right on top of it. She come right to me, and we got ahead of the situation, and I have not heard nothing this year. So I'm really proud, I live down in the Garber area, so I can open and roll them to Edco or Clayton Ridge without too much of an issue, but I'm proud to send them to Elkader. I want to be part of Elkader, I think how can we, if my child needs to go to special education, no, I don't want that, but it's for my child. I will do what I need to do for my child. So if it's the school system calendar change, if it's going to benefit my child, that's what I want. And how can we know if it's good or bad if we don't try? How can people be against it already if they don't know if it's going to be beneficial with
It's something, like I said, we're going to monitor it. It's not something we're going to do and just turn our backs to. It's going to take a couple years. You can't do it in 1 year because the first year you'll have a big summer break. But the next year you would decrease your summer break a little bit. You could still in the first year monitor your behavior data and your attendance data for sure, so you get that right away.
Or if it's hot in the summer, can the teachers take the classroom outside? Maybe they'll, be open more to learning, sitting down at the park.
More hands-on, get them down into our businesses. What can we do with our businesses and our community to support our community? I think, one of the things we did at a Catholic school, we did service projects. So every grade level had to come up with a service project. Our 5th graders were out raking our elderly's leaves. I mean, just kindergarten, kindergarten can't do anything. The other kid, they go to the nursing home and redo our elderly. They love that. That's how we promote our school. We get our kids out. I mean, our community, you guys give us a ton of support, whether it be financial through your taxes or, sending your kids to us or coming in and helping in the school. What can we do back? And I've said that to Roger in this group all along. I was like, I want our kids to be active back. I want them to give back to the community. When they give back to the community, I think then there's a stronger chance of them coming and living in the community too, because they feel ownership. Well, thank you very much. I have another one Monday night. Just so the people still hear how this is going to work, I think after the first 3, we're going to have a board work session. That's a public meeting too, but we're going to just put together what are we hearing, and then at that time possibly develop a survey off the questions we still want to answer. Get that out to everybody. Probably have another work session, look at the results of the survey, make revisions to the calendar, and then propose the revised calendar out at another public forum or 2 or 3 or however many it takes. So This is not a finished product. Very much appreciate your input and your thoughts, and please continue to share those. Don't just contact me. Ultimately, the school board votes on the calendar, so make sure you have their ear as well. But thank you very much.
So this is gonna take long past March, the deadline to open it
No,
up.
I don't think so.
Got 3 weeks.